The Tigeri was a German heavy tank of World War II that operated beginning in 1942 in Africa and in the Soviet Union, usually in independent heavy tank battalions. It gave the German Army its first armored fighting vehicle that mounted the 8.8 cm KWK-36 gun. 1,347 were built between August 1942 and August 1944. After August 1944, production of the Tigeri was phased out in favor of the Tiger II. While the Tigeri has been called an outstanding design for its time, it has also been called over-engineered, using expensive materials and labor-intensive production methods. In the early period, the Tiger was prone to certain types of track failures and breakdowns. It was expensive to maintain, but generally mechanically reliable. It was difficult to transport and vulnerable to immobilization when mud, ice, and snow froze between its overlapping and interleaved skakteloaf-work pattern road wheels, often jamming them solid. This was a problem on the Eastern Front in the muddy Rasputita season and during periods of extreme cold. The tank was given its nickname Tiger by Ferdinand Porsche, and the Roman numeral was added after the Tiger II entered production. The initial designation was Panzerkampfwagen wie Ausführung H, literally Armored Combat Vehicle wie Version H, abbreviated PZKPFW wie Aus. H, where H denoted Henschel as the designer/manufacturer. It was classified with Ordnance Inventory Designation SD.KFC. 182. The tank was later redesignated as PZKPFW wie Aus. In March 1943, with Ordnance Inventory Designation SD.KFC. 181. Today, only 9 Tigeri tanks survive in museums and private collections worldwide. As of 2021, Tiger 131, captured during the North Africa campaign, at the UK's Tank Museum is the only example restored to running order. Combat experience against the French Somme S-35 cavalry tank and Char B-1 heavy tank, and the British Matilda II infantry tanks during the Battle of France in June 1940 showed that the German army needed better armed and armoured tanks. On May 26, 1941, Henschel and Ferdinand Porsche were asked to submit designs for a 45-ton heavy tank, to be ready by June 1942. Porsche worked on an updated version of their VK30.01P Leopard tank prototype while Henschel worked on an improved VK36.01H tank. Henschel built 2 prototypes, a VK45.01H, H1 with an 8.8 cm length/56 cannon, and a VK45.01H, H2 with a 7.5 cm length/70 cannon. The Tiger differed from earlier German tanks principally in its design philosophy. Its predecessors balanced mobility, armor and firepower and were sometimes outgunned by their opponents. While heavy, this tank was not slower than the best of its opponents. Although the general design and layout were broadly similar to the Panzer IV medium tank, the Tiger weighed more than twice as much. This was due to its substantially thicker armor, the larger main gun, greater volume of fuel and ammunition storage, larger engine, and a more solidly built transmission and suspension. A substantial problem with the Tiger was that its production required considerable resources in terms of manpower and material, which led to it being expensive. The Tigeri cost over twice as much as a Panzer IV and 4 times as much as a Stug 3 assault gun. Partly because of their high cost, only 1,347 Tigeri and 492 Tiger II tanks were produced. The closest counterpart to the Tiger from the United States was the M26 Pershing, around 200 deployed to the European Theater of Operations, ETO, during the war, and the IS-2 from the USSR, about 3,800 built during the conflict. From a technical point of view, it was better than its contemporaries. Despite the low number produced, shortages in qualified crew and the considerable fuel consumption in the face of ever-shrinking resources, Tigers, including Tiger IIs, destroyed at least 10,300 enemy tanks and 11,380 anti-tank guns and artillery pieces for the loss of 1,725 Tigers. Including large numbers of operational and strategic losses, i.e. abandoned, broken down, etc. A substantial problem with the Tiger was that its production required considerable resources in terms of manpower and material, which led to it being expensive. the Tigeri cost over twice as much as a Panzer IV and 4 times as much as a Stug 3 assault gun. Partly because of their high cost, only 1,347 Tigeri and 492 Tiger II tanks were produced. The closest counterpart to the Tiger from the United States was the M26 Pershing, around 200 deployed to the European Theater of Operations, ETO, during the war. And the IS-2 from the USSR, about 3,800 built during the conflict. From a technical point of view, it was better than its contemporaries. Despite the low number produced, shortages in qualified crew and the considerable fuel consumption in the face of ever-shrinking resources, Tigers, including Tiger IIs, destroyed at least 10,300 enemy tanks and 11,380 anti-tank guns and artillery pieces for the loss of 1,725 Tigers, including large numbers of operational and strategic losses, i.e. abandoned, broken down, etc. Production of the Tigeri began in August 1942 at the factory of Hinterland Zone in Kassel, initially at a rate of 25 per month and peaking in April 1944 at 104 per month. An official document of the time stated that the first Tigeri was completed on 4th of August. 1,355 had been built by August 1944, when production ceased. Deployed Tigeris peaked at 671 on July 1, 1944. It took about twice as long to build a Tigeri as another German tank of the period. When the improved Tiger II began production in January 1944, the Tigeri was soon phased out. In 1943, Japan bought several specimens of German tank designs for study. A single Tigeri was apparently purchased, along with a Panther and 2 Panzer IVs, but only the Panzer IVs were actually delivered. The undelivered Tiger was loaned to the German Wehrmacht by the Japanese government. Many modifications were introduced during the production run to improve automotive performance, firepower and protection. Simplification of the design was implemented, along with cuts due to raw material shortages. In 1942 alone, at least 6 revisions were made, starting with the removal of the Vorpanzer, frontal armor shield, from the pre-production models in April. In May, mudguards bolted onto the side of the pre-production run were added, while removable mudguards saw full incorporation in September. Smoke discharge canisters, 3 on each side of the turret, were added in August 1942. In later years, similar changes and updates were added, such as the addition of Zimmerit, a non-magnetic anti-mine coating, in late 1943. Due to slow production rates at the factories, incorporation of the new modifications could take several months. The humorous and somewhat racy crew manual, the Tigerfibel, was the first of its kind for the German army, and its success resulted in more unorthodox manuals that attempted to emulate its style.